My name is Emily Carter, and I grew up in a small town outside Portland, Oregon. The kind of quiet neighborhood where people waved when you drove by and everyone's mailboxes leaned the same way from the rain. Back in 1995, I was 23, fresh out of college, working part-time at a small marketing agency, and trying to figure out my life. It was early summer, late May, one of those perfect Oregon days when the air smells of pine and the sun finally feels warm again after months of drizzle. My dad had recently bought a used Yamaha scooter, saying it would be a fun way to save on gas. I remember laughing because it looked ridiculous, bright red with a seat big enough for a bear, but it was light, easy, and I loved how the wind felt on my face when I rode it around our quiet streets. That morning, I decided to take it for a short ride before heading to work. I wore a denim jacket, a pair of jeans, and no helmet, something I still regret to this day. I remember starting the scooter, the soft sputter of the engine, and the sound of birds along the road. Everything felt perfectly ordinary. No warning, no strange feeling, just a girl in a summer morning. I turned onto a road lined with maple trees. The sunlight flickered through the leaves, and for a moment it felt magical, almost dreamlike. Then, everything went wrong. There was gravel on the turn. My front tire slipped. The scooter jerked violently to the right. I remember the sharp sound of rubber skidding, the handle twisting out of my hands, and then the crash. My body flew forward, weightless for half a second before I slammed hard into a tree. The next few moments were chaos. The sound left my ears, my right hand twisted under me, and a burning pain shot up my arm. I would later learn I had torn the tendons completely. Someone screamed nearby. Maybe me. Then everything went quiet again. I could hear only my heartbeat thudding in my ears, fast and uneven. A man from a nearby house came running. I remember seeing his shoes stop near my face. "Don't move," he said. "Help is coming." His voice sounded like it was underwater. The world was dimming around the edges, like someone was turning down the lights. I don't remember the ambulance arriving. The next clear moment was being in a hospital room, bright fluorescent lights above me, nurses moving quickly. My mom stood at the door, pale and shaking. A doctor said something about surgery, that they needed to reattach the tendons in my hand immediately. I wasn't afraid. I should have been terrified, but a strange calm washed over me, like I had already accepted something I couldn't explain. They put a mask over my face. I remember counting backwards as the anesthesia flowed through the tube. 10, 9, 8, at 7. I felt it. A sudden tightness in my chest, like a rubber band snapping. My vision narrowed to a pinhole of light. I tried to say something, but my lips wouldn't move. The monitor next to me started beeping faster, then slower. Then there was one long, flat sound. I heard someone shout, "She's coding," and another voice yell, "Get the crash cart." I felt hands on my chest, pressing hard, the weight of someone doing CPR. Then, nothing. No pain, no panic, no fear. The darkness didn't feel like falling asleep. It felt like floating, as if every part of me that had ever been heavy had been set free. And then, suddenly, there was light. Not blinding, not harsh, but soft, endless, like sunlight shining through a million tiny pearls. I wasn't lying down anymore. I was standing. My body didn't feel broken or sore. My hand was perfect again. The air smelled like rain, and something sweet, almost like jasmine. I looked around and realized I wasn't in a hospital anymore. The floor beneath me gleamed like white marble. Enormous columns rose on both sides, stretching so high they disappeared into a soft golden glow. The space went on, far longer than any hall I'd ever seen. My first thought was so ordinary, it almost makes me laugh. Now, I had no idea the hospital was this big. But it wasn't a hospital. Deep down, I already knew that something had changed. I could hear faint music, not from instruments, but from the air itself, like the sound of joy turned into sound waves. My thoughts felt louder, clearer. I could see farther than I ever could before. And then, I heard it. A voice, soft and kind, speaking near my left ear. "My name is Maya," it said. "I'm your guide." I froze. The first thing I remember about that place, wherever I was how alive it felt. It wasn't like Earth, where everything has edges and shadows. Here, the light seemed to come from everywhere, like it was part of the air itself. I could see each particle shimmer, almost like it had purpose. The floor beneath me was made of smooth, polished stone, white with a faint hint of gold, and it stretched out farther than I could see. Every direction looked endless, yet somehow gentle. To my right stood a long row of tall white marble columns, spaced evenly apart, each maybe 20 or 30 feet high. They looked like the ones you'd see in Greece or Rome, perfect, silent guardians of time. Between each column, soft golden light poured in like sunlight filtered through silk. To my left, carved into the marble wall, were tunnels, rectangular openings, so dark, they looked like the night sky had been pressed into the stone. There was no reflection, no floor inside them, just infinite blackness. And yet somehow, they didn't feel frightening. They felt like doorways, portals, leading somewhere I wasn't meant to go yet. The hall itself was enormous. It could have been miles long. The ceiling rose higher than any cathedral. The air carried a faint echo, not of sound, but of presence. I felt like I was standing inside something sacred. Then that gentle voice came again. The same one I'd heard near my left ear in the hospital. "My name is Maya. I'm your spirit guide." Her tone was calm, warm, almost motherly. It didn't echo. It was as if she spoke directly inside me, bypassing sound entirely. I turned around, trying to find her, but I couldn't see anyone. "Maya," I whispered. "Yes," she said. "I'm here. You don't need to see me, just listen." I can't describe the comfort that voice gave me. Every word felt like it had color, like kindness itself had found a voice. Then she said something that made my breath catch. "You're safe, Emily. You're on the other side now." The other side. I didn't fully understand it yet, but deep in my chest I knew she was right. There was no pain. My hand didn't hurt anymore. My breathing was effortless. Every worry, every fear, every bit of noise that used to live in my head, it was gone. What replaced it was the most complete peace I've ever known. Maya told me to look ahead. In the center of this long, endless hall were hundreds of small white tables, the size of kitchen tables, stretching down the middle in perfect rows. At each table sat two people facing each other, smiling, holding hands, talking softly. Their clothes glowed faintly, like they were woven from light itself. Then I saw something move. One of the dark tunnels to my left began to shimmer, and from it stepped an elderly man. His hand was over his heart. He looked confused but peaceful. Maya's voice explained. "He just crossed over from Earth. He had a heart attack." I watched as a woman from one of the tables stood up and walked gracefully to him. She reached out, took his hands, and led him gently to the table. The moment she touched him, his face softened, like he remembered something long forgotten. "These are orientation counselors," Maya said. "They help each soul remember where they came from." I watched as the man and the counselor talked. Though I couldn't hear their words, I could feel the emotion, warmth, recognition, relief. Then something astonishing happened. The old man began to change. Slowly, the wrinkles faded, his posture straightened, and before long, he looked like he was in his early 30s, strong, healthy, full of light. "That's how we appear here," Maya explained. "We return to the best version of ourselves." The woman stood, smiled, and gestured toward the far end of the hall. The man walked away from the table, down a short flight of marble steps, and out through an archway, and there, beyond those steps, was a garden unlike anything I could describe. The grass looked alive, glowing with a color so green it almost hummed. Flowers moved as if breathing. A soft breeze carried music, not from instruments, but from life itself. And as that man walked into the garden, dozens of people appeared, running, laughing, clapping. They surrounded him, hugging him, touching his shoulders, cheering like he had returned from a long journey. "Everyone has a reunion," Maya said. "Every soul that passes is greeted by those who came before them. No one arrives alone." I stood there, unable to speak. Because as I watched that moment, that perfect reunion, I felt something awaken inside me, a memory, not a memory from Earth, but something deeper, a knowing that this place, this feeling, had always been my true home, that every time I had ever looked at the night sky and felt homesick for something I couldn't. The world around me shifted as if someone had changed the lighting of a stage. The blinding white marble softened into gold. The sound of gentle voices filled the air, laughter, footsteps, quiet conversations that somehow didn't clash, but flowed like music. The air had a soft warmth that felt like sunlight filtered through love itself. Maya's voice came again, calm and close. "This is still the orientation center," she said. "But I want you to understand what happens here. Watch carefully." I turned toward the rows of tables again, hundreds of them stretching into the distance. Each pair seated across from one another glowed faintly, not like fluorescent light, but more like light from within. They were talking, touching hands, sharing smiles. There was so much peace there that I almost forgot how to breathe. From another dark tunnel on my left, a young woman stepped through. Her hands covered her face, and she was crying softly. But these weren't sad tears. They were full of release, like she'd been holding her breath for years and could finally exhale. Immediately, two counselors stood up from a nearby table and walked toward her. They looked like ordinary people, canned, simple, radiant. One had soft brown hair, and the other had silver curls that shimmered under the light. The silver-haired one reached out first, touched the young woman's shoulder, and whispered something to her. The moment she did, the girl's tears stopped. Her expression turned from confusion to recognition, like a child finding their way home. Maya said, "Every soul has to remember who they truly are. It takes time. The human mind forgets, but the soul never does." I could feel that truth move through me like a quiet current. Then Maya said something that changed everything I thought I knew. "No one's life is an accident. Every lifetime is planned before you arrive on Earth. We choose challenges because that's how we grow." Her words made my heart ache. I thought about every hardship, every heartbreak, every moment I'd wished away, and I realized maybe they weren't mistakes after all. Maybe they were lessons I'd written for myself, long before I was born. I wanted to ask her more, but she gently redirected my attention. "Watch what happens next." I turned and saw a boy coming through another tunnel, maybe 16 or 17. He looked frightened. The air around him shimmered, and for a second I could see two versions of him, one still faint and fading, like a ghost leaving a shadow behind. Then his form solidified into light. Two counselors met him, smiling, and guided him to a nearby table. I saw one of them take both his hands and close her eyes. For a brief moment, the table itself glowed, just for a few seconds, then faded back to normal. Maya explained. "That's how they help souls transition. They transfer peace through touch. Energy here is alive. It responds to love instantly." Her words made sense in a way that didn't need proof. Everything here responded to thought, to emotion. Nothing was random. Then Maya said something that made me pause. "You see those tunnels on your left? That's where souls come in from Earth. But the ones on your right, that's where they return when they decide to live again." I looked to the right and noticed, for the first time, that beyond the rows of columns, there were faint, glowing doorways. Some flickered gently, as if waiting for someone to step through. "So people come back?" I asked. "Some do," Maya replied. "Not because they're forced to, because they want to. Learning never ends. You will understand more soon." Then from the far end of the hall, a bright light opened near one of the arches. I watched the elderly man I had seen earlier walking through it. This time, he was surrounded by dozens of others. Family, friends, people of all ages. They embraced him, cheered, laughed. The air around them glittered like sunlight on water. It was the reunion Maya had told me about. I could feel what that moment was like, even from a distance. A pure wave of welcome, of celebration, of belonging. And then something strange happened. As I watched the man being welcomed, I began to feel a pull, not physical, but emotional, a memory rising from somewhere far deeper than my body. It felt like remembering something ancient, that I had been here before, that I knew this place. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with longing. I wanted to go into that garden too. I wanted to see my people, whoever they were. I wanted to run toward them, and finally exhale everything I'd ever carried. Maya must have felt what I was feeling, because her voice softened. "Not yet, Emily. You still have more to understand. But they're waiting," I whispered. "I can feel them." "Yes," she said kindly. "And they always will be. No one is ever lost. The ones you love are never gone. They are just waiting at the end of your chapter." The moment she said that, my longing turned into calm, and for the first time since the accident, I began to cry, not from pain but from relief. Relief that none of us ever really vanish, that death, the thing we fear the most, is actually the doorway home. The light of the orientation center began to brighten again. The walls shimmered and slowly faded, and I felt myself being lifted upward, not by movement, but by thought. "Where are we going now?" I asked. "To the place where you'll see your life as it truly was," she said. "It's time for your review." And just like that, the hall, the tables, the columns, all of it dissolved into soft gold. When the light faded, I was standing in a round room filled with glowing screens that floated high above me, like stars circling a gem. When the gold mist cleared, I realized I was standing in a circular room, vast and silent, with walls that seemed to breathe light. The air itself glowed a soft silver blue, and I felt a hum beneath my feet, like quiet music vibrating through the floor. Above me, floating in a perfect ring, were 20 or so screens of light, not made of glass, but energy. Each one shimmered like water, waiting for something to begin. Maya stood beside me, or maybe within me. I could feel her presence rather than see her. "This," she said gently, "is your life review." The words made me nervous. Life review? The phrase felt like a report card. My stomach tightened. Though I didn't have a body, I could still feel. "You mean judgment?" I asked quietly. "No," Maya said, with a calmness that silenced my fear. "There is no judgment here. Only understanding." As soon as she said it, the screens above me flickered to life all at once. Each one played a different moment of my life, scenes scattered like pages torn from a book. On one screen, I was 5 years old, holding a red balloon at the park. On another, I was a teenager at my high school graduation. On yet another, I was sitting with my mom at the kitchen table, laughing over coffee. It was strange. I wasn't just watching, I was reliving them. I could smell the coffee, hear the laughter, even feel the summer air on my skin. But then, something even stranger happened. The images began to overlap with emotions that weren't mine. When I helped my friend move apartments years ago, I suddenly felt her gratitude. It wasn't just seeing her smile. It was experiencing what she had felt in that moment. It was overwhelming. Maya explained softly, "Here, you see your life through every heart you've touched, for better or worse. This is how souls learn compassion." I nodded, my throat thick with emotion. The next scene began. I saw myself at age 12, teasing a classmate named Danielle. She had a stutter, and I'd mimicked her once to make my friends laugh. It was a stupid, thoughtless joke, one I'd forgotten the next day. But as the scene played, I suddenly felt Danielle's pain. It hit me like a wave: embarrassment, loneliness, the sting of not belonging. I wanted to look away, but the scene held me there until the feeling passed. When it ended, Maya said gently, "No one escapes what they've caused, not as punishment, but so they can understand." My eyes moved to another screen. This time I saw myself in my early 20s, volunteering at a local shelter. I remembered handing a blanket to a woman sitting by the door. Her name was Lydia. As I watched, that familiar wave returned, but instead of pain, I felt her relief. The comfort she felt from a stranger's kindness, small but meaningful. I could feel the warmth of it spreading through her, like sunlight after a storm. I realized then that every action, no matter how small, creates ripples that never disappear. The good ones heal, the hurtful ones teach. And maybe both are part of why we're here, Maya said softly. Every soul designs its life to learn something specific. You wanted to understand empathy, not by being told, but by feeling. That word, empathy, sank deep. I remembered all the times I had closed myself off, afraid of getting hurt. Maybe every painful experience wasn't meant to break me, but to open me wider. The screens began to shift faster now, showing a lifetime of choices, faces, laughter, tears. The moments I thought were meaningless turned out to be the ones that mattered most. Helping a coworker on a bad day, calling my grandmother just to talk, saying sorry when I didn't have to. Each one sent a small pulse of light outward, and I could see how those pulses connected, branching out like webs, touching dozens of other lives. At one point, I saw an image of myself crying alone after a breakup. I'd felt worthless that night. But as I watched, I realized I wasn't really alone. I could see faint forms of light around me, like hands hovering close. Maya explained. No one suffers alone. The higher realms always send comfort, even when it's unseen. By now, tears streamed down my face, or whatever part of me could still cry. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was awe. Then, suddenly, the screens went dark. The room was still. That's all, I whispered. That's enough, Maya said kindly. You saw what you needed to see. I turned to her voice. But what if I failed? What if I didn't do enough good? You can never fail, she replied. Every life is valuable, because it's experience. Understanding grows each time. That's the purpose. The words felt like they wrapped around me, like a hug for my soul. I took a deep breath, even though I didn't need air, and looked up again at the dark screens. I didn't see shame anymore. I saw a pattern, a story with beauty and meaning, even in the mistakes. Maya's voice softened. Now you understand how your actions echo. It's time to see what came before. Before, I asked. Yes, she said. Before this life. And with that, the circular room began to dissolve. The walls faded into pale mist, and I felt myself moving again, not walking. The door ahead of me shimmered like liquid glass, the surface rippling as if waiting to let me through. I hesitated. Somehow I knew that whatever waited on the other side would change everything I thought I understood about life, and about myself. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. Don't be afraid, Emily. You've done this before. Before? The word echoed. Before, what? The moment I thought it, the door opened soundlessly, spilling golden light across the floor. I stepped through, and the world changed again. Now I was standing inside what looked like a great theater. Rows of curved seats stretched out behind me, empty and glowing faintly, and in front of me was a massive screen of living light, like a movie screen, but fluid, almost breathing. The air smelled faintly of cedar and rain. Maya said softly, "This is the Hall of Records. Here, every soul can view its past lifetimes. Each one holds lessons, experiences, and growth." My heart, or whatever part of me still held feelings, beat faster. Past lifetimes? I asked quietly. You mean reincarnation? Yes, she said simply. You've lived before, many times. Earth is only one classroom among countless others. Before I could respond, the light on the screen shifted. Images began to form, faint at first, then sharper, clearer, like a movie developing before my eyes. The first scene made my breath catch. I saw a young man sitting cross-legged on a stone floor, surrounded by children. His head was shaved, his robe deep red. The air around him smelled of sandalwood and incense. He was teaching, calm, patient, eyes full of compassion. And though the face wasn't mine, I knew that man was me. That was one of your lives, Maya said. You were a monk in what you now call Southeast Asia. You taught others how to still their minds and find peace. You came to learn humility and service. I watched as the monk, as I laughed gently when a child asked a question. The moment was small, but I could feel the warmth of it inside me even now, centuries later. The image faded, replaced by another. This time, I stood on a narrow cobblestone street in what looked like Eastern Europe. I was wearing rough, worn clothes. In front of me was a wooden cart full of shoes, old leather boots, sandals, slippers. My hands, rough, calloused, were mending a shoe with thread and awl. I realized I was a cobbler, a simple shoemaker. My shop was open to the street, and people came by smiling, greeting me as I worked. This life, Maya explained, was about patience. You learn to create quietly, to find dignity in work and kindness in service. I watched myself hand a pair of repaired shoes to a small boy. The boy hugged me, and that feeling of love, that simple human connection, echoed through me like a bell. The scene dissolved again, and the next one began. This time, I stood in a wooden boat, rocking gently on a wide lake. The sun burned low in a purple-orange sky. My hands were strong, tanned from sun, pulling in nets heavy with fish. Children waited on the shore, cheering as I waved. You were a fisherman, Maya said. That lifetime was about providing. You learned what it means to sustain others. I could feel the rhythm of that life, the simplicity, the wind, the community. Every lifetime had its own song, its own lesson, its own piece of the puzzle. When the images faded, I turned toward the soft glow where I felt Maya's presence. So we live over and over? I asked. As often as we wish, she replied. Each lifetime gives the soul a chance to grow. Some choose thousands of lives, others only a few. It's always the soul's decision. But why come back? I asked. If this side is so peaceful, why return to all that pain? There was a long pause. I felt her smile, not pitying, but knowing. Because peace doesn't teach, love does, loss does, courage does. Earth is one of the hardest schools, but also one of the most rewarding. You chose it for a reason. I stood there quietly, watching the last traces of my other selves fade into soft light. I felt humbled. So many versions of me, learning, falling, rising again. So many lives, all leading to this one. Then Maya said something that hit me deep in my soul. Your experiences are never lost, Emily. Everything you learn stays with you forever. Wisdom becomes your light, and that light never dies. The words echoed through the hall, and the screen began to dim. I was filled with a mix of awe and sorrow. Awe for the beauty of this endless journey, sorrow for how much of it I'd forgotten while living on Earth. Will I remember this when I go back? I asked softly. Not clearly, she admitted, but your soul will remember. You'll feel it in your intuition, in your compassion, in your sudden moments of peace. That's how memory speaks when the mind forgets. The screen flickered one last time. This time there was no image, only a faint, radiant symbol that looked like two circles intertwined. What is that? I asked. A reminder, Maya said. No soul walks alone. You have a counterpart, what humans call a soulmate. You'll understand soon. The light brightened, washing over me until I couldn't see the hall anymore. The ground beneath my feet vanished, replaced by clouds of gold and white. I felt myself being pulled upward again, weightless, peaceful. The air around me vibrated with the sound of distant bells. Where are we going now? I asked. To the place where souls make their choices, she said. Where lives are planned. A quiet sense of anticipation filled me. If what she said was true, that every lifetime is chosen, then I was about to find out why I chose mine, and maybe why I had come back here at all. The golden mist around me slowly began to settle, shaping itself into form, walls, light, movement. I was standing before a structure unlike anything I'd seen so far. It was round, enormous, gleaming as though carved from white marble mixed with light itself. Around the entire building were tall columns, and above them a dome so vast that I couldn't see where it ended. It shimmered softly, almost breathing, as if alive. Maya's voice returned, close and gentle. This, she said, is the Hall of Design, the place where souls plan their lifetimes. I followed her inside. The interior was breathtaking. It looked like a cathedral of peace. The ceiling was painted with moving light, blues and golds swirling like a living sky. In the center of the room stood hundreds of tables made of shining stone, each one surrounded by figures of light, quietly talking, their energy glowing in different shades, some gold, some silver, some soft rose. The air vibrated with calm intelligence, as if everyone there was creating something sacred. Maya led me to a smaller table near the front. On it lay a scroll, tied neatly with a blue ribbon. It looked ancient and delicate, the kind of parchment you'd see in museums. The moment I saw it, something inside me stirred, recognition. I didn't know how, but I knew this scroll was mine. Go ahead, Maya said. Open it. My hands, or rather, the light that now served as my hands, untied the ribbon. The scroll unrolled across the table with a faint hum, like energy moving through it. Elegant writing covered the parchment, black ink that glowed faintly at the edges. The letters weren't English, yet I could somehow read them perfectly. They were details, pieces of my life, my birth year, my parents' names, the town I grew up in, even certain crossroads, moments I had faced, heartbreaks, accidents, turning points. Every event was there, not as fate, but as choice. I gasped. I planned all of this? Yes, Maya said. You planned the themes, the lessons, the opportunities, not the small details. Those shift with free will, but the framework, the story's shape, that was yours. I stared at the scroll, overwhelmed. Then, my pain, my failures, even the accident, all chosen, she said softly. Not to punish you, to shape you. My chest felt warm, almost electric. I thought of all the times I had asked, why me? The heartbreaks, the loneliness, the doubts. And here was the answer. Because I asked for growth. Because my soul had known what I needed, even when my mind couldn't understand. Then, before I could read further, the scroll began to fold back up, as if closing itself. Why can't I see the rest? I asked. Because knowing too much would interfere, Maya said. Each life must be discovered, not spoiled. You write your plan, but you also choose to forget, so that learning feels real. She pointed upward toward the walls. For the first time, I noticed that the hall was lined with countless shelves, each one holding scrolls. There must have been millions, maybe billions. Every soul on Earth, Maya explained, has a corresponding scroll here. When a lifetime ends, they return, take their scroll from the wall, and review what they accomplished. I looked up at the glowing shelves and felt small in the best way possible, like part of something vast, organized, beautiful. Then Maya motioned toward another doorway at the far end of the hall. There's something else you need to see, she said. We walked down a corridor, lined with soft light. It led into a smaller circular chamber, filled with books. The shelves curved around us, and each book was identical, thick, maroon, with golden lettering down the spine. Maya gestured to one. These are soul records, she said. Every being has one. They hold the essence of who you are, your growth, your experiences, your creations. She walked to a specific shelf and pulled one book out. The gold letters spelled a name I didn't recognize, yet it struck something deep in me. It wasn't an earth name, more like a vibration made visible. This, she said, handing it to me, is your soulmate's record. The word hit me with a kind of gentle shock. Soulmate? I whispered. Yes, Maya said, smiling. When the Creator brought you into existence, you were made with a perfect counterpart, a soul whose energy complements yours completely. You may or may not meet in a lifetime, but you are always connected. I ran my hand over the cover. Are soulmates always romantic? Not necessarily, she said. Sometimes they are partners, sometimes friends, sometimes they simply guide each other from afar, but they are always one at the spiritual core. As I held the book, I could feel energy pulsing through it. Warmth, familiarity, something eternal. It wasn't about possession or longing. It was recognition. Like hearing a song you've always known but forgotten. Will I meet them? I asked. Maya's tone softened. Perhaps, or perhaps they stayed behind this time to guide you. Not all lessons require proximity. Some are learned through distance, through yearning, through growth apart. I stood there quietly, absorbing every word. It was strange, comforting and bittersweet, all at once. Then Maya said something that nearly made me cry. Remember, Emily, no soul ever truly loses their counterpart. You are connected beyond time, beyond space. When you return here, you will find them again, and it will feel as if no time has passed at all. The chamber grew brighter, and I looked up to see light streaming through a vast circular window. Outside, I saw people, or souls, walking along shining paths beside a crystal lake. Its surface was perfectly still, reflecting trees that looked like emerald glass. Everything you love to do on Earth, Maya said, you can do here too. Creation is endless. Learning is eternal. For a moment, I just stood there, feeling weightless, complete. I realized that home wasn't a place. It was this awareness, this connection, this memory of who we really are. Maya touched my shoulder, or maybe just my energy, and said, there's still more you need to understand. The universe itself has lessons to teach you. The hall began to fade again, the scrolls and shelves dissolving into light. Where are we going now? I asked. To see the bigger picture, she said. The story beyond Earth. The floor opened into starlight, and I felt myself rising, faster and faster, through what looked like an ocean of galaxies. And then, ahead of me, I floated upward through light until the air turned deep blue, scattered with stars that shimmered like diamonds caught in motion. Then, softly, my feet touched the ground again. I was standing in front of what looked like a massive planetarium, but unlike anything Earth could ever build. Its walls were made of glass and light, and constellations moved across the ceiling like living rivers of fire. The energy here felt alive, a hum that pulsed through the floor and into my being. Maya appeared beside me, glowing faintly gold. This is the Celestial Theater, she said. Here, souls learn about the universe, the vastness of creation, and how every world has its purpose. We walked to the center of the dome. Around us, the stars rearranged themselves into patterns. I looked up, completely breathless. Every direction was space, galaxies turning slowly, planets orbiting suns, nebulae glowing in violet and turquoise. It was like standing inside the universe. Then, the stars dimmed, except one, our sun. I could see Earth spinning, bright and blue. This, Maya said, is your current classroom. I smiled softly. That little blue dot, it looks so small. It is, she said. But don't mistake smallness for insignificance. Earth is one of the most challenging and valuable schools for the soul. The density of emotion, the depth of experience, it makes growth profound. The image shifted. The Milky Way unfolded like a spiral of light, thousands of stars sparkling along its arms. Then Maya raised her hand, and the vision expanded further, revealing billions of other galaxies, stretching endlessly into the distance. There are more worlds than you can imagine, she continued. Each one holds its own kind of life. Some are physical, like yours. Others exist purely in vibration. Creation never stops. I was stunned. So, there are others like us. People living on other planets? Many, Maya said simply. Different forms, different lessons. Some far more advanced than Earth, where beings communicate only through thought, where they know their unity with the Creator. Others are still in early stages, learning the basics of love and cooperation. All are part of the same grand design. The view changed again, this time showing a series of glowing orbs floating in the darkness, each one pulsing to its own rhythm. I realized they were planets, but not like ours. Each one radiated a unique energy, some calm and pale, others vibrant and fiery. Each world, Maya said, is like a musical note in God's symphony, Together they form the harmony of existence. That is the true nature of the universe, not chaos, but music. I watched as the orbs vibrated in rhythm, forming a pattern of light that resembled sacred geometry. It was so beautiful that I wanted to cry. "Why did you show me this?" I asked. "To remind you," she said, "that you are part of something much larger than the life you left behind. Humanity often believes it is alone, but that is an illusion. Separation is the first lesson. Unity is the last." Her words sank into me, like water, finding its way into soil. I had never thought of existence as music before, but now it made perfect sense. Every soul, every life, every planet, all part of one great melody. Then, just as suddenly, the dome began to dissolve, replaced by something new. I found myself standing in a library, but it wasn't quiet or still like libraries on Earth. It was vibrant. The air shimmered with the sound of whispers, soft laughter, the turning of pages that glowed like light itself. The shelves stretched higher than I could see, filled with books that emitted a faint golden aura. Souls moved through the aisles, some alone, some in pairs, each radiating calm joy. "This is the library of wisdom," Maya said. "Every truth ever discovered, by any being anywhere, is stored here. It is the collective mind of creation." I stepped closer to one of the shelves. The books looked alive, their covers shifting colors as if breathing. I reached out and touched one, and instantly, images flooded my mind. Ancient cities, oceans, stars being born, languages I'd never heard yet somehow understood. I pulled my hand back, stunned. "These books, they're alive. Knowledge here isn't read," Maya explained. "It's experienced. When you seek understanding, it flows into you directly." I turned and noticed something to my left. A smaller room glowing softly. Inside sat a woman in a lavender robe, her hair long and dark. She was watching what looked like a moving image, a clear floating screen showing a scene from Earth, a group of settlers building a small village hundreds of years ago. At first, I thought it was a historical documentary, but then Maya said, "She isn't watching a recording. She's watching the actual event. Everything that happens in creation is remembered here. Time does not erase anything." I stood there, watching the screen, my mind spinning. "So history isn't gone." "Nothing is gone," Maya replied. "Every moment, every thought, every word still exists in energy. Here, souls can revisit them, not to judge, but to learn." I felt a deep awe. The library wasn't just a place of learning, it was the memory of God. I turned to Maya. "Do we all get to come here after we die?" "Yes," she said. "When the soul is ready, knowledge is always available, but wisdom must be chosen. Some wish to rest before learning again." I walked slowly through the aisles, running my hand along the glowing spines of the books. Each one hummed gently under my touch, like the heartbeat of eternity. "There's still one more place I want to show you," Maya said finally. "The last lesson." "Another place?" I asked softly. What could possibly be left? "You've seen creation. Now you must meet its source." Her words sent a quiet shiver through me. The library began to fade. The shelves melted into light. The sound of turning pages softened into silence. And once again, I felt myself rising. Higher, lighter, freer. The air thickened with warmth. I could smell flowers, the faint scent of something divine. Ahead, a golden field appeared, endless and bright. Maya's voice whispered, "Welcome to the meadow of return. Someone is waiting for you." I could feel it before I saw it. A presence so powerful, so loving, that the air trembled around me. And then, as the light cleared, I saw him, or rather, I felt him, standing there in white and gold. The energy that radiated from him. The light ahead of me grew brighter, yet it didn't hurt my eyes. It wasn't sunlight. It was something pure, alive, intelligent, almost breathing. As I stepped forward, the space around me unfolded into an endless meadow. The grass swayed in waves of gold and green, glistening as if dusted with stars. The sky was the clearest blue I had ever seen, and the air itself seemed to sing, a sound so soft and familiar that it felt like hearing my own soul hum. Maya was beside me for a moment, her form shimmering like light on water. "This," she said, "is the meadow of return, the place where souls meet the source before going home." Then she smiled, warm and knowing. "You won't need me for this part. He's here for you." Before I could ask what she meant, her presence faded into the light. I turned, and that's when I saw him. He stood a few steps away, clothed in pure white that shimmered like woven light. Around his waist was a golden sash, and the same golden hue traced along his arms and sandals. His face, I couldn't see it clearly because it radiated too much light, yet somehow I knew he was smiling. Every part of me recognized him instantly, like remembering someone I had always known but forgotten. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. He was what I would call the presence, some might say Christ, others God's pure manifestation. For me, it felt like love itself had taken form. The moment I looked at him, the world seemed to pause. Everything fell away. Time, space, the idea of me. All that remained was this indescribable, overflowing love. It wasn't love like we feel on earth, not the kind that rises and falls or gets tangled with fear. This was absolute, infinite. It surrounded me, filled me, became me. I didn't fall to my knees. I didn't need to. My soul did it for me. And then he spoke. Not through sound, but through vibration that filled every corner of my being. "You are loved beyond all measure." Those words hit deeper than any truth I had ever known. I didn't just hear them. I felt them rewire something inside me, healing places I didn't even know were broken. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Tears, or what felt like them, ran down my face. Why did I forget? I managed to ask, why did I ever doubt? He smiled. Or maybe it was the light that smiled. Forgetting allows you to remember what you are. Doubt teaches faith. Pain reminds the soul how to love without conditions. He reached out his hand. It wasn't physical, but when that light touched me, I saw my entire existence flash before me. Not as scenes or memories, but as a single thread woven through billions of others, forming a tapestry of purpose. Every heartbreak, every joy, every lonely night had meaning. Nothing was wasted. Then he said something that made everything fall into place. "There is no death." The words vibrated through me, expanding outward until they filled the whole meadow. "What you call death is simply waking up," he continued. "Life is not a line from beginning to end. It is a circle of becoming. You return again and again until you remember you were never separate from us." I looked around the meadow, at the grass that shimmered, the distant figures walking together in laughter, the endless horizon that looked like it led home. "I don't want to leave," I said quietly. He moved closer. The light around him grew warmer. "You can't stay yet," he said gently. "You still have work to do. There are people who need your story, people who fear the ending that does not exist." My heart sank.